Hey, what's up? How are you doing? So it's Coach Blaker going over your Galio vibe review today. First things first, I chose this gameplay just because I seen that we were 13, 2, and 10, I believe. And that's a really, really good kill participation score to not win the game. So I was hoping I can go through this game, figure out why we lost this game, and that way you can figure out why we lost, and we'll be able to then ensure that this doesn't happen again. And that means that we're winning the games that we do well in, and the only games that we're losing in are the games because we played poorly, not because we played well. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Galio, one thing about Galio you want to know is he's a really, really great roamer. He's extremely good at roaming. He's really good at controlling the wave. Even though he's not necessarily a control mage, he's really good at controlling the wave. So what you want to do with Galio is you want to look to push the wave and look to roam. Just push, roam, push, roam. Pretty much that's all you want to do with Galio because the kill pressure you have in lane isn't really there unless your opponent messes up. And you don't really want to use that mentality to climb ranks because once you get higher than when you are right now, it's going to be a lot harder to secure kills onto your champion or onto the enemy laner champion. So it's best for you to work out how we're playing it now and really focus on the push, shove, or not push, shove, shove, roam. So let's go ahead and let's talk about what we did this game. Also, keep in mind that Anivia is not that great at pushing early. She's really good at pushing later on after 6 and with items, but earlier than that, she's not really much for her team to work with early either. So that would be the time where you want to do the most of your roaming so that she can't really contest you and you can already propel your team and yourself into a lead. So the first things first here that I think we should talk about is definitely going to be 445. So I feel like we definitely need to back more often. If we look at what we did here, you did a couple of good roams. You helped your team out. I liked it. Everything that I see and I liked up to this point. And you're at 13. Now you're at 1100. So you're at 1100 and then boom, you're at 14. 1400 gold. By this point, we should be backing and looking to get the item, which you were trying to build the proto belt. So you should have got the revolver. We didn't really get it, right? We should have got the revolver. We have enough to get the revolver, but we don't get the revolver, and we continue to play for a couple of minutes. And now, why is this a problem, you might ask? Because the way you've been playing and the way that you're supposed to be playing is you want to roam, you want to go help, and you want to be effective for your team. Well, what happens when the other players, the other 4 players, are backing and you're staying in lane with so much gold? Anivia doesn't really have any gold. I mean, she does right here, right? We see she has 1500, but just let's just assume she doesn't have any gold, right? And you just got 2 kills, but you're staying in lane. Well, the person that doesn't have any gold isn't backing, so you're not backing, but she has no reason to back, but you do. So now you're sitting on, let's just say 1200 gold, right? You're sitting on 1200 gold while she's sitting on 200. You guys are still the same stats because you haven't backed yet. And in this instance, we could have backed a long time ago, and we didn't. Because what's going to happen when you need to help, right? You need to ult down there and help, and they already bought. You're going to be at a disadvantage. And the last thing you want to do is just depend on your levels to be enough to carry you through some of these fights. You're definitely going to need to back more often. If you're really having a hard time, you could choose to back between 700 and 1,000 gold. Or if you know that you're waiting for your power spike piece, or you're waiting for your actual full-on item, it's perfectly fine to overstay that. But I just use that as a parameter because sometimes you're not necessarily looking for a piece and a fight is going to break out pretty soon. And you could just go back real quick because we got 700 to 1,000 gold. That way we're not committing to that fight with the 700 to 1,000 gold when we could be getting amplifying tones or cloth armor or no magic mantle, you know, stuff like that. You always want to try to fight on all your gold if possible. So that's why I have that parameter there. But we definitely need to make sure that we're backing more, especially when we have a piece of an item or a full power spike item. Next one is 1127. Here we go. All right. So once again, like I said before, you're really good at rotating. You're really good at making sure that you're there if your team needs you. Even though you left with the minions, I understand the situation down here. You're like, well, they're probably gonna get dove. I gotta come down here. And then you're right. This would be a really nice like setup, and you get a free wave once you kill all 3 of them. Because if they dive, they're gonna commit like crazy to that. So we see Warwick, right? And you're coming down. This is perfect. And then we see Warwick running away. At this point, this play is over, and you don't have to be down here. So you're not wasting time. So you're not losing farm up here. More farm than what you're going to lose, you know, if you commit. But what did we do? We came down here, looked to try to force a fight. And then Jinx ends up overstaying because you basically told her to overstay, so to speak. But just your presence alone is enough to say, hey, go ahead and do this. I have your back. And so she did, and she ended up dying. Yeah, we got a kill too, but why make it harder, right? If they get 300 and you get 300, we really didn't get a lead here, did we? So do your best to make sure that before you're going to rotate, before you're going to roam, and you get to a point where you don't know if you're going to be impactful, think about 15 to 20 seconds ahead before each roam, and you can pretty much figure out if the play is going to be over or not. And once you assess if the play is going to be over, that's when you choose, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going back because I want to get my farm, I want to get my CS. That way you're not forcing yourself to force a play to then have a domino effect that causes our team to die as well. As I said, your presence alone is enough to cause a teammate to do something. So be really, really careful about that. Next one here is 1625. Okay. So this is a really good roam once again. Good little fight. You start backing off because you feel like you're not going to get anything. And then we go in again. Now, one thing you want to focus on when you're in fights like this, little skirmishes, whether it be, sometimes it's early, but most of the time you'll be mid to late game. You really want to focus on your target priority. You really want to focus on what job you have. Every player or every champ is going to have a certain job depending on what the situation is. So your job right now, let's go back just a little bit before actually. So your job right now, right? You're like, well, I'm going to engage on this. This is fine. You're like, boom, I'm about to go engage. Great. And then you're like, well, I can't do much because I'm getting hit and I already wasted all my abilities, which are perfectly accurate. We back up out of these. Now, from this point, you can't really engage on this anymore, right? And you don't have enough damage to just one shot. Whereas your Jinx over here needs your help. And so what we want to do is we want to change our target priority and help out our AD carry. Keeping her alive, even if the ADC is behind, keeping them alive when you know you don't have the damage to kill anything else is the next best thing, especially when it comes to late game. You have to start keeping your ADCs alive. So we decide to go this way for the kill, not really focusing on our Jinx here. When that was an easy, 3v1. But now we're chunked extremely low. We can't really do anything now. But we had the opportunity. And then Jinx does some crazy stuff and just dies. But that whole situation could have been avoided if you would have just played it properly. And so sometimes you might think, well, my teammate's doing this and it sucks, or my teammate's doing that. What are they doing? But most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, something that you do leads to that action. Whether it be you not pinging them back when you see it happening, you not participating in an easy fight that could have secured us a kill anyway, and then could have led to 2, right? So we have to pay more attention to these team fights and not just tunnel to what we are initially focusing on, but pay attention to the big picture. Pay attention, do I have to go back and peel for this person because they're in danger? A really good way to think about it when you're roaming and stuff like that is to think about, is my mid laner following me? That way you have some sort of picture that we're going to have a 3v3 and you're not surprised if they just pop up like that. So really focus on your target priority when we're in these fights. If you don't have enough damage to one shot or you already burned your kit and you back up like that, think about what else is there for me to do in this team fight. Is my ADC safe? No? Let me go back and help them. So, like I said, I applaud the roam. Very good roam. I like it. You've been roaming a lot this game, and it's been very, very good. But how we execute some of these roams need a little bit more work. All right, so 20. Here we are. So right now, where are you? You're here. Okay, cool. So right now it's 17-8. Right now you just bought. Looking all juicy, right? When you get really good, you can basically figure out if a teammate has backed recently by just kind of how long they've been on the map. Also, you can look at their items and be like, well, you shouldn't have this much CS and this many kills and not have these items. So that could be a good tell, like, hey, you need to back. And so sometimes you could type reset or, let's all buy and then go Baron. At least give them an idea of like, hey, please buy so we can go ahead and do something. Because like I said before, we want to fight on all of our gold, right? So knowing that we're stronger, we can look to force this Baron. Now, a lot of people don't like to do a 20-minute Baron, but we're not really going here to take it. We're going here to start a fight. We're going here to bring them out of their towers and to say, hey, you come help, you come deal with us, or we take this for free. If they come deal with you, you just, kill them all. If they don't come to you, you get the Baron for free. I think it's a win-win situation. I don't know. But we got to make sure that when we do have a lead, we are forcing this. If a dragon's up, of course, go ahead and force the fight there. It's fine. But at this point in time, there is no dragon, and we already know we're stronger. So ping your team back, say, hey, go recall. You can actually click the recall button, and I do this a lot, no matter what role I'm playing. And if I notice someone doesn't have enough items, or if I notice someone didn't spend all their gold, or they've been on the map for a really long time, I use there's a recall button in the dashboard. You press Alt, and then you just click it. Dashboard on the HUD. And you could do that too. Or you could just type, as I said, reset, let's Baron, and more or less it'll work. All right. So as you see here, we're not really fighting around Baron. And then if we keep going, what then happens? Our team is backing, which is good. Like I said, we didn't really have enough. Everybody needed to back anyway. But look what happens. All this time just kind of spent farming. When they want to do the same thing because they're behind, right? When you're ahead, you have to like push that lead. Pushing that lead means we have to force stuff. You don't want to force dives, of course, but you want to force fights. And then what happens? Then a fight does break out. That's not even for an objective. It just happens to break out. And because it was at a proper timing for them, they were able to get Dragon after this play. Actually, I don't think they actually got Dragon. I don't think they did anything, honestly. But the fact that we were in the situation because we just didn't force it here, man, this could have been a real 5v5 over here instead of just randomly right here. So, like I said, your roams have been really good. You've been choosing to roam at the right times, but now we have to choose to fight at the right times. Just because we're all ahead doesn't mean we just fight all the time. So this leads me to my next point here, is before we take fights, before we commit to fights such as these, we want to make sure that we have three things. We want to make sure we have positioning, ultimates, and resources. So if we go back here, just a little bit, just a smidge, and we look, okay, positioning. Well, Olaf is here. Jinx is here. We have to assume if they're in the fog, right? If they're in the fog, they're there. We don't know unless we have some pre-context to say, hey, this guy was top and he's moving down bot. We have to assume that everybody's around the same area. So if we knew this had 5 players, right? 1, there's 2, 3, 4, and then of course Swain's here. Would we take this 3v5? No. You have to think like that so you don't have to take these fights that are bad. Because once again, your presence is enough to tell your team to go. And because they're going, you decide to go. And then we just have a really, really bad fight here. Which is why we use our pings to tell them like, hey, let's do Baron. Hey, let's do Dragon. Hey, back up, back up, back up, back up. Because you have to learn to micromanage your teammates. Even in higher elos, it's the same thing. Micromanaging your teammates because some players are just auto-filled sometimes. So this fight goes bad. We still try to make better use of it. And we end up dying. And then Triss is down here. Really not even... She's getting towers for nothing. But if we would have fought, won that fight, got Baron, and lost this tower, perfectly worth. We would have chased her off, then got Dragon, and then we would have pushed bot. And most likely would have pushed mid too with a teammate. Like somebody would have went mid while you went bot. And we could have closed out the game with one more fight and it was over. And that was your win right there. Right there. That was your win. But because we chose to not force a fight when we know we're ahead, to not really micromanage our team, and to show that hey, we're around if you need help, your team just does some weird stuff and you decide to follow up and you get punished for it, even though you were playing well the entire time. So I think the main thing that lost us this game is that mid to late game. The fact that we have a lead and we didn't pressure it. We didn't force a Baron call. We didn't make sure that we're bringing them to us. And if you don't come to us, we take stuff for free. And the other thing that I think that lost us this game here was we're committing to fights without really knowing the positioning of the players, your team and their team, the ultimates of your team, and the resources. Ultimates meaning some champions need their ultimate. Jinx doesn't need her ultimate to be useful in a team fight, but the rest of your teammates do. You kind of don't, but it's nice to have it, but you don't really technically need it to be useful. just like Jinx doesn't need it to be useful. And then, of course, resources is HP and mana. But we don't move on from positioning to ultimates to resources unless we have positioning. Okay, all 5 of us are around? Cool. Everybody has ultimates? Cool. Everybody's healthy? Cool. Mana? Resource? Okay, cool. Let's go for this fight. But we're going for the fights without even having good positioning from our teammates. And it's cost us one fight that cost us to down spiral in this game. So I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, let me know. As I said before, focus on pressing that lead, making sure that we're forcing these objectives, force them to fight us because we're going to take something if they don't. And then, of course, make sure that when you do commit to these fights, you are paying attention to the positioning, the ultimates, and the resources, okay? As I said before, though, good job on roaming. You're doing a really good job. Get better at executing them, and you'll be on your way, okay? Other than that, though, Coach Blaker, signing off.